Come on, let's go. I don't want to miss the previews.
Have you seen my phone?
What? No.
Well, I can't leave without my phone. Will you call it?
It just went to voicemail.
Okay, I woke up, my phone was charging, I grabbed it.
Checked Facebook.
Yeah, it helps me wake up.
And then what?
So I peed, and then while I was taking a shower and getting ready, I was listening to a podcast on my phone. I remember, because I remember fast forwarding through the first 15 minutes.
And then what?
So I came into the kitchen, I fed the fish, I cleaned up the coffee, I took a picture of Emmett eating his breakfast. I didn't put it in the refrigerator.
Well, that's where it was last time.
One time I do that, and now you think I just leave my phone in the refrigerator all the time?
Well, then I don't know where it is.
Well, was it in the fridge?
No.
So I sat here and I texted my mom.
Then what?
That's the last thing I remember.
Well, then it must be here somewhere. So, did you find it?
No. Did you find it?
Oh, there it is. My harmonica.
Great.
Thought I lost this. Did you find it?
No. Hey. Focus.
We could just get you another phone.
I can't get another phone. My whole life was on that phone.
Oh, please.
Those pictures were on that phone.
What pictures?
Those pictures.
Did you find it?
No. Did you find it?
Nope.
Then where is it?
Well, did you at least back it up?
I don't even know how to do that.
What do you mean? You back up your phone.
Okay, walk me through the specific steps on how to back up your phone.
Okay, well, cloud.
You can't just say cloud.
We could just use my phone.
You only have a 4S. It's a little embarrassing.
What does that mean?
I don't understand. My phone can't just disappear into thin air.
Well, I don't know where it is, okay? We looked everywhere twice.
Are you sure you don't have it? You're not just messing with me?
Why would I have your phone? I have my phone and my wallet.
I am going to kill you.
If there's an explanation for this?
Yeah, the explanation is I am going to murder you right now.
Oh, where is my phone? Oh, where can it be? I should take better care of my expensive things. I lost my phone. Oh, where can it be? Yo, did you flush my...
You know, some of you are here today because this is what you do on the weekend. But maybe others of you are here because you need something real. You need some real comfort. You need some real help. You need some real answers in your life, maybe in your relationships. And if that in any way describes you, what would it feel like to have any sense of desperation on any level at all, and to get here to this part of our gathering and hear me say, good luck, have a nice trip this week, safe journey, and then pray a little prayer and send you out. It's not enough, right? It's not satisfying. It doesn't work. And yet this is how we largely start people out in their relationships, isn't it? Hey man, we give them a pat on the back and we wish them good luck and we send them into the world as if that were enough. In fact, we had a wedding yesterday. A number of us went up to Michigan and were there Friday evening for a rehearsal. And then yesterday, as Jeremy Hostetler and Raquel got married, Jeremy leads our youth here. And you know, I mean, I'm sure there was a whole bunch of well wishes. Now, I just want to mention this. I said this this morning in the first gathering in the prayer circle. You know, during the reception, and everybody knows what happens at the reception, right? You bang on things with your fork or your spoon or your knife or whatever. And then what does the couple do? They kiss, right? Well, we did that a number of times, and I expressed my displeasure with the level of kissing. And so I think this week as they're on their honeymoon, we need to pray a lot for them based on what I saw yesterday. Just what I'm saying. But you know, come on. I'm sure yesterday there was many people who wished them well. If you're in this room and you're married or you've ever been married, do you remember at least one person on your wedding day? Oh, you guys are just going to be so great to you. Right? Like you heard at least one person say words to you like that, right? Like, oh, just good luck. This is going to be so great. And how much in the weeks, the months, the years, maybe the decades since then, have those nice words helped you in your relationship in moments of difficulty? Not at all, right? It doesn't work that way. And so as we continue in this relationship series that we've been calling Bon Voyage, week 1, we actually talked about that idea, right, of bon voyage, right? The idea that sometimes we just get that pat on the back and that good luck. And the last couple of weeks we've been pretty honest, haven't we? And many of us have confessed that that is not enough. We actually need more help if we're going to succeed. And just like at the beginning of any successful journey, you have to prepare, the exact same thing is true in relationships. We've got to prepare to have a successful relationship. And so that's what we talked about the first week of this series. And if you missed that, I just want to encourage you, go out to the website, newhope.rocks. You can find all the messages out there. Catch up on that. Because here's the problem. And if anyone is in here and you're at the very beginning of a relationship or in those beginning phases, here's what we do, right? Oh, no, I don't need any of that because we're in love. Right? And we allow our feelings and our emotions to overwhelm us, all the good ones, that is. But here's the thing. Feelings and emotions, they come and they go and they do not last. Those things are not enough. And then last week we talked about the phase of a relationship that we referred to as blissful ignorance. That's the one where one or more parties in a relationship think that everything is great. And that's because either they just don't know yet that not everything really is great, or it's because one thinks it's great, usually the guy, and the lady hasn't told us yet, right, about all the things we still need to work on. And so in this phase of our relationship, here's what happens. We're just so happy to be in a relationship. We're so happy to be in the boat that we don't notice what's lurking beneath the waters. We don't notice how windy it is and how much the waves are crashing against our boat. We don't notice the giant hole in our boat where the water is pouring in through because we're just so happy. And we said that life and relationships are better and actually even more blissful when the ignorance starts to diminish and even dissipates totally, because then and only then are we building on something real. We're not building on something pretend or fake. And so I gave a simple yet powerful question to help with this transition. And I heard from a number of people who asked this question at some point. Maybe it was later that day or the next day, went on a walk, had a meal, and just asked the question, hey, honestly, how is our relationship? Honestly, how are we doing? Honestly, what are the things I don't even know yet? What are the things you need from me? that if I were to do these or give these things to you, man, it would just let you know how much I love and care for you. And I heard all kinds of great things. We actually, as soon as we left church, we actually went out for lunch. And as a family, we all asked the question. And largely, it was an encouraging time. But come on, you have to have some guts to ask questions like that, don't you? Because you never know what the other person's going to say. So you ask it, and you brace yourself a little bit, right? Like, what is he or she going to say? And then if they say something nasty about me, what am I going to say to get them back, right? We got to be careful with this. I've met with a few couples this week, talked to a bunch of couples who asked the question, and we're trying to work through some stuff. What a gift to be a community of people who are working on and want our relationships to get better. And so as we jump in today, we're going to call this week Smooth Sailing. This is the good week, right? This is what everybody wants. Now, this one hit me in sort of an interesting way because when I was a kid, the number one thing I loved to do as a child was fishing. That's actually why I decided to wear my fly fishing vest today, just because I knew you guys would like that. You can put flies and stuff in these little pouches. I even wore my felt bottom boots that you wear like in the river, right? So you can walk on slippery walks without falling over. Now, you guys probably need to pray for Bethany and I a little more because a few weeks ago, we were cleaning out the garage and we were throwing things away. We were giving stuff away. We were selling things. And she saw these boots sitting on top of this sort of rack that we have a whole bunch of stuff on. And she goes, "What are those boots? Can we get rid of those?" Are you kidding me? Those are my felt bottom boots. No, we can't get rid of those. So she didn't even know what they were. Let's pray for us. We need your prayers. So when I was a kid, I would go fishing all the time, right? I fished from boats and canoes. When I was a kid, my parents bought me this inner tube. It actually had, in the center, it wasn't just a hole, it had a thing and it had handles. I would actually get in that inner tube with my fishing rod, and I would have a stringer on one thing and a thing with bait on the other, and I would literally paddle out into Lake Huron, and I would fish, and I'd catch fish. I fished from banks and docks and culverts and dams. I fished in rivers and lakes and streams and ponds. When I was a kid, I would actually almost every day of the summer get on my bicycle with my tackle box and my fishing rod held against the handlebars. Sometimes on the ride home, I would also have a stringer full of fish, and I would ride from 5 to 10 miles one direction to get to and from the fishing place that I would fish all day. Crazy, isn't it? Now if our kids have to go like a quarter mile, they need like a ride and you to pick them up, right? But this is how I lived. And I was probably too young to really take it all in and appreciate it. But I have a number of pictures and memories that from the water and being on the water that look something like this image right here. Just a perfect sheet of glass. Anything we did on the water, any paddle or any movement of a motor was the only blemish at all. Otherwise, it was just perfect. And if you're a water person at all, or if you've ever been on or around the water like this, it's incredible, isn't it? It's just so beautiful. There's virtually no resistance anywhere. It makes smooth sailing really easy. Now, smooth sailing is the season of a relationship where everything is actually pretty awesome. We've done some hard work and we've navigated some things, and we've gotten to the point where the water is actually calm and life is good. This is where every one of us wants to be in every relationship we have, isn't it? This is what I wish for you, and I wish for me, and hopefully we all wish for each other. But there are things we have got to do when we are in the smooth sailing season of a relationship to help maintain that and to help prolong it. And if your only approach is to close your eyes, right, and kind of you brace yourself and you're like, I just don't want to do anything or say anything because I don't want to jinx this. If that's your approach, you will be in a smooth sailing season for a very short period of time. It's just how that works. You can't just rest. But come on, haven't we all been that way? Man, Rob, I have worked so hard, and finally it seems like in my marriage, with my coworker, with my family member, with that friend who we just had so much turmoil, I've worked so hard. Can't I just sit back for a second and relax and enjoy it? Well, actually, you can. And many of us have, haven't we? We finally get to a little better place, and we're like, I gotta stop working for a while. I just need to enjoy this for a minute. And here's the thing. The problem with that is for a good while, it can actually seem like everything's pretty good. It's sort of like in other areas of life, right? In our physical area of life, if we're like, well, I just had to work so hard, and man, I ate right for like what seemed like for years, and I exercised all the time, and I like how I look now, I like how I feel. I don't need a cheat meal or a cheat day. I need a cheat month that turns into a cheat quarter, and it might turn into a cheat half, right? And then before you know it, man, on the outside everything still may look good, but it doesn't take very long physically for things to head the wrong direction, right? It doesn't take very long spiritually if we work hard in that area of life for things to head the wrong direction if we stop doing all those kind of things. And the exact same thing is true in our relational life. If we do nothing, things head the wrong direction. Doing nothing results in atrophy and even death. And so, Father, today, as we consider what we should do, what we can do, God, to get to places in our relationships where we're sailing smoothly, or Lord, maybe we're there. Maybe for some of us we're there and we really would like to stay there. And so God, I just pray that today would be helpful, would be practical, would be powerful and a blessing, Lord, to help us all navigate to smoother sailing. We ask these things together today in Jesus' name. Amen. So what do we do? Well, let me give you just a few very practical ideas. The first one simply is energy, right? This is where we really don't need to do a ton, but we need to do something consistently all the time to keep things moving in the right direction. But there's really very little resistance and almost no drag. For me, what this makes me think of, who here's been to COSI down in Columbus? COSI, right? A bunch of us have been to COSI. If you go down to the lower level, there's an outdoor play area, right? Where there's like things where you can talk in one and somebody who's like, 100 feet away after all sorts of bends and turns can listen. You can talk. There's all sorts of really cool stuff like that. My favorite thing out there is there's this giant rock, right? This giant boulder. And really none of us in here, unless it was like teetering on the top of a hill, could actually push it and move it. It's just so big and so heavy. And yet this perfectly round rock actually sits in a base that has water, right? And so without much effort, you can push it, and it just starts to move. And once it's moving, just little bits of energy keep it moving. It's just a really cool thing. It's amazing that so little can keep so much moving. And that's not only true for that rock, but sometimes when the waters are good and we have a smooth sailing relationship, it doesn't take very much energy at all just to keep it moving in that good, right, healthy direction. But, sometimes in our relationships, in order to maintain smooth sailing, energy is not enough. We need to do a little bit more. And so sometimes we need not just to think about energy, we got to think about the word effort, right? So here I think of riding a bicycle, right? So when you think of riding a bicycle, if you're on a flat level area or a slight decline, it's pretty easy, right? You put one foot on a pedal, you give yourself a little push, and off you go. But have you ever started out on your bicycle on a slight incline? Now, we don't want anyone watching us when we do that. Like, do you know what I'm talking about? Where the starting of the riding more looks like hop, 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 right? Because you need to get enough momentum going so that when you actually put your other foot on the pedal, you can keep going, right? You know what I'm talking about? Anyone ever do this, right? And it's sort of awkward. And here's the thing about that. It's not nothing. It's something. It's an actual effort. But what we get in return from that little bit of effort is worth it, right? Once we get going, and we can move so much easier. But come on, sometimes energy and effort are not enough to maintain or achieve smooth sailing in our relationships. And so for some of us, more is required than just those things. And the last thing I want to share about that is the idea of work, right? For some of us, what we need to do is actual work. I remember as a little kid being out on the water with a friend of mine in his canoe. Now, we were out on the water all the time, fishing, doing stuff, swimming, hanging out, just playing around. But this one day we got out on the water, and there was a little bit more wind than usual, and there's a little bit more waves. And as two kids who were out there all the time, I'm sure we were pretty cocky. Until we got just far enough from the shore that we lost complete control. We couldn't steer that thing. We couldn't control it at all. And the wind and the waves were taking us very quickly down the shoreline. And even though this is like 35 years ago, I still remember us yelling and arguing at each other because in our panic, we started blaming each other. Anybody else ever do that at your home, right? In your panic, some things are said. You know, we got far enough down. I'm sure we were way out of the range we were supposed to stay in. But I still remember when we finally managed to get over to shore and get out of that boat and pull the canoe up on someone else's land, just the relief we felt. Because for those number of moments, I actually didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if we were going to be able to survive that. The water was way too powerful for us. Now, some of you hear that, you're like, well, but you were a kid, right? And that's true, but there's nothing quite like a relationship, especially a challenging relationship, that makes us feel like helpless kids again, right? Like there's nothing we can do. We've tried everything already. There's nothing we can do to make this work. This summer, Christopher and I, we went on a week-long motorcycle trip, and one of the days we went whitewater rafting. Christopher would tell you it was his favorite thing about that whole trip. And one of the things we learned pretty quickly is that by and large, the river, the current, all that was going to take us where it wanted us to go. And most of the time that was fine, right? It was kind of a pathway that was good. But there were moments where we needed to not go where the river wanted to take us. There were moments where we needed to get to the other side of the river or take a different line. And in those moments, it took a ton of work. And we'd probably say that it took everything we had to make that happen. Sometimes our relationships to get to smooth sailing require us to really work. Now here's the thing. Energy, effort, work, that sounds okay. But Rob, is that really helpful? I mean, did you just tell us 3 words to kill 10 minutes of a message? Is that what happened? No. I actually think that there's a lot that can help us. There's more there than we know. Galatians 6:7 says this a different way. The very same thing. A person reaps what they sow. Another way it's translated is, you will always harvest what you plant. Basically, this is telling us that we get what we give, that you receive back what you put into it. Your energy, your effort, and your work are not only not in vain, they are important and necessary to achieve and maintain smooth sailing. If you are in a season of smooth sailing in your life, in your relationships, you can't just hang out there. You've got to give energy and effort and work in order to stay there. If you're not there, you're never going to stumble upon it by accident. You have to give those things in order to get there. Now, some of you are thinking, yeah, Rob, that sounds right, but here's the thing. What if I have been doing a ton of that, man, energy, effort, work like crazy, and I still don't have any smooth sailing? Like, what do I do then? Here's the thing, and this is the tricky part. Just doing those things is not enough. You have to do those things properly. Now, some of you are thinking, well, does that mean there's a right way to do them and a wrong way to do them? No. Well, there is a right way and a wrong way. But what I'm saying here is, with every person in every kind of relationship, there are things that they need. There are things in ways that you have to speak to them and communicate with them. And if you don't do it that way, you will perpetually miss each other, and things won't be smooth sailing. So this requires tons of talking and communicating. This requires tons and tons and tons of trial and error. When you do something and it doesn't work, mind-blowing. Do less of that, or none. And if you do something and it works, maybe try more of that, right? So trial and error, and sometimes we can't just do it on our own. We need other people to interact with us and give us feedback, sometimes even go to counseling and things like that. These are powerful things. And now there's others of you in the room and you're like, you know what, Rob? I don't know if I buy into that, because in my life, in my relationship, I've been doing none of those things. I haven't been given any energy, any effort, any work. And I tell you what, things are so good, it just seems like smooth sailing. I just want you to hear this. If that's true for you, smooth sailing is never a place you actually start. The place you start, if it seems like smooth sailing, we talked about last week, it's blissful ignorance, right? And so smooth sailing, you don't just start there automatically. It's a place you have to get to. You have to work in order to get there. And so some of you might be asking, well, then how do I know for sure? How do I know if what I'm experiencing right now, well, okay, maybe it's blissful ignorance that we talked about last week, but maybe it's just the calm before the storm that are ahead that we're going to talk about next week. I mean, how do I know if it's really smooth sailing? And there's a key. This key works almost all the time. And it sounds really simple, but ask yourself this question. Do you get and give the benefit of the doubt? Now, let's play this out a little bit. When you do or say something, sometimes out of ignorance, have you ever watched this? Have you ever watched in any kind of relationship someone say something to the other person and you almost brace because you're like, uh-oh. Like, if he or she were to say that to me, like, wouldn't be good, right? And nothing happened? Or maybe it's not even out of ignorance. Maybe you watch people say or do something, not out of ignorance, but in the heat of the moment, right, in the heat of the battle. This happens a ton at our place. I'm just going to be honest. I'm sure this never happens at your places. But man, a lot of times for us, it's when we're trying to go somewhere and we are on the threshold of being late, and all of us still have 10 things yet to do, right? And mom and dad usually have been yelling at the kids for a long, long time to get them to do stuff. And so now it's gotten real. And I'll just be honest, Bethany has to give me the benefit of the doubt way more than I have to give her, because I'm like, we're late, come on, right? She's doing all the work. I'm just like waiting to walk to the car kind of a thing. But I'm losing my mind a little bit, and she totally doesn't deserve that. But you know what? In those moments, so many of the time, nothing happens. There's no like, I can't believe you, no, we got to have a conversation. Why? Because things are good, and I've just been blessed with the benefit of the doubt. Now, there's the other extreme too, right? When you did or said nothing. Like, you even played it back in your mind 100 times. You're like, I was nice. Everything that came out of my mouth was loving. And yet somehow we wound up on the threshold of World War III for no apparent reason, right? This is because you have not received the benefit of the doubt. And so if that's the case, you're not experiencing smooth sailing. If there's any calm at all, it's the calm before the storm that is blowing quickly in and is about ready to try to drown you. And I know this feeling too, right? Everyone, if you've been in a relationship for more than a year, you know probably this feeling. And so this is not just about what we get, it's about what we give as well. So here's the thing. If you're in here and you can think of any relationship where you're sort of planning, I just know that he or she are gonna do that again. And the next time they do that, here's what I'm gonna do to blow them up, right? If that is you, man, you may be getting the benefit of the doubt, but you're certainly not giving the benefit of the doubt. Don't think bad. Don't anticipate that stuff's going to go sideways. Don't blow somebody up intentionally. So as we continue to think about this idea, we've been looking at the most famous incident of Jesus and his disciples on the water over the last couple weeks. And this takes place right after some insane lows, right? We saw that Jesus' relative, John the Baptist, had been beheaded. And then right after that, there's this crazy high moment where Jesus is a part of doing this miracle with very little food. He feeds 5,000, right? Just this powerful stuff. And so at the end, Jesus tells his disciples, you go on ahead, I'm going to dismiss the crowd. And because all of this stuff has happened, right, he needs to replenish. So he gets alone with his heavenly Father. And after all that's taken place, we see that he wants to get back with the disciples, right? He wants to get to them, but they're now way out in the lake. They're getting further and further away. And so the text tells us that he went to them on the water, and his disciples are losing their minds. They're afraid. It seems like there's a ghost because he's doing this impossible thing. And then last week we saw that Peter, when this happens, Jesus doesn't just reveal himself to them, but then he speaks to them. He says, hey, take courage. Don't be afraid. It's me. And Peter, this crazy request, right? He goes, hey, Jesus, if it's really you, tell me to come to you on the water. And what does Jesus say? This is where we left it last week. He says, come join me out here. Now we're gonna skip over the nitty-gritty of what happens when Peter actually gets out of the boat, and we're gonna come back to that next week, and that's just incredible. You don't want to miss that. But today we're gonna jump to the end of this passage. In order to learn about smooth sailing, we've got to see what happens at the end. So I want to show you Matthew 14, verses 32 and 33. And the text says simply, and when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. Those who were on the boat bowed and worshipped him, right? Said those great words, truly, you are the Son of God. And when they got to the other side, it wasn't just the people who were on the boat who behaved like this. Others, the Bible tells us, recognized Jesus, and they actually worshipped him. They actually went and they got their sick and their ill friends and family, their relatives. They brought them back to Jesus, and they believed that if these sick people could just touch the edge of Jesus' cloak, that they would be healed. And so why did the people on the boat worship? Why did the people on the other side of the lake believe? And why in the world? I mean, I could see doing that, right? But then all the extra work to go actually get your friends, your family, your relatives, and bring them back. I mean, some of them may not have been able to walk. Think about how much extra effort that would be. Now, did they do this just because they were supposed to? Well, he's Jesus. We got to worship him, right? My overly religious friend, if I don't, will scold me and tell me what the bad things they're going to. That's why I got to do it, right? No. I can see three very obvious reasons in the text, two of which we've already talked about, that are obvious reasons why these people worship Jesus. The first is this, very simple. He walked on water. Now, I don't know about you. If I'm going to pick who to worship, I'm going to pick someone who can do impossible things. Anybody with me on this? Right? And you know what? I don't just want to pick someone who can do impossible things. Like remember 10 years ago when Jesus did that cool trick and walked on the water? No. I actually want to pick someone who just did a miracle. Jesus just did this. He just did what was impossible. This is who I want to worship. See, he was happy to go first. Jesus will show up for you. Jesus will perform miraculous things in your life and in your relationships before you've ever done even one thing to earn that from him. And oh, by the way, even at our best, there is nothing that any of us can do to actually earn that. And yet Jesus is happy to go first. he walked on water first. But then watch this. This is cool, right? We saw this last week. He invited and enabled Peter to walk on water as well. And we're going to see more of the details of this next week, but come on. I mean, I would worship someone just because they could do a miraculous thing, even if that never ever made it from them to me. But Jesus doesn't hoard miracles. He actually gives them away, and he enables them in our lives, in my life, and in your life. So seriously, is anyone else with me? I mean, I would worship someone just because they could do miraculous stuff. But if they could do miraculous stuff for me and in my life, I want to worship them even more. Anybody else with me on this? Right? This just makes sense. In fact, Jesus never makes this all about him. It's only ever all for us. And so before I share the last one, I got to say this because this is so important if we're actually going to allow this truth to land in our lives, in our minds, in our hearts. Do you actually know that Jesus cares more about your relationships than you do? Those relationships that keep you up at night, those relationships that aren't smooth sailing but you desperately need to be, Jesus cares more about those than you. He wants to see those go well even more than you. So I saved the best for last, because here's the truth. The idea of walking on water is pretty cool, right? Anybody here kind of want to be able to say, I walked on water? Anybody else? I kind of want to do that. But here's the thing. I don't want to have to need to walk on water all the time. Anybody else with me there? Like walking on water once would be pretty awesome, right? But having to walk on water over and over and over again in order for things to work out, that's too much. Let's think about it differently. A miracle story or two in the whole life of your relationship is amazing, important, even necessary. But if you need a miracle to happen as a common occurrence in order for your relationships to continue, you are doomed. If you need a miracle like all the time, right, you got to work a little bit more. You haven't been working enough. Now, let me give this to you in a more practical way. So we always go to the Wayne County Fair. Last year we went, Liam did a bunch of rides, our 2-year-old Ben. He's 3 this year, but he couldn't do some of the rides he really wanted to because he didn't quite make the height cut. This year, he got to ride way more of the rides, and he was fired up. And so my personal preference is a little bit scarier ride. I like those ones, right? So Christopher didn't want to do this with me for years, but this year I'm like, hey, Liam, want to go on the shock drop? Right? That's the one that just takes you up however many stories and then lets you free fall, right? And the reason I like those rides is because it sort of creates that moment inside of you. Like you don't want to do that if you're a guy because your man card could be in jeopardy. But I love that feeling. And so as the thing's going up, I'll be honest, I'm a little older now, and I'm a little bit worried because my 3-year-old, he makes the legal height limit, but the little click thing that goes down, he floats around a lot in there. So I'm trying to hold him in place so he doesn't shake to death on the drop. And then I'm a little older. They pushed the little click bar. The guy who was working there basically had to lean back and use his feet to push it. I wasn't even wearing my fishing vest at the time, right? It clicked. The thing's going up, and here's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm like, you know what? I love that feeling, but with my blood pressure being high, I may die on this ride. That goes through my mind, right? So we fall, and Liam's frightened, and he doesn't ever want to ride that ride again, and I'm thankful to be able to breathe again and that I didn't, have anything bad happen medically. And so we get off the ride. One of the other rides we rode, though, was the boat. The boat that just sort of rocks back and forth like this, And there's sort of that feeling of when you get way up to the top, but there's nothing inherently scary about the ride. It's just sort of that sensation. And then at the other extreme is the Ferris wheel, right? Where you just sit on it and you could even just take a nap because you're just going in a circle. Right? Some of you are like, I have height issues. That's on you. That's a whole different thing. We're not talking about that today. we don't want to have our relationships always be the shock drop, right? Sometimes it's nice when it's smooth sailing and we can just close our eyes and relax for a second. So here's why smooth sailing is an important and necessary state. Watch this. This is so cool. Jesus' presence, his presence calmed the wind. When Jesus and Peter got onto the boat together, the wind instantly calmed down. Well, why is this a big deal? The wind caused the waves, remember, to violently beat the boat further away from Jesus, even threatening to knock it off course. Next week, we're going to see all that happens when Peter gets onto the water. But the big deal there is that the wind and waves got him in trouble. So let me show you the verse again that we saw a few minutes ago. It says, and when they, Jesus and Peter, and when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. When Jesus arrived, the wind died down. Do you hear that? When Jesus arrived, the waves, because there was no longer the wind, the waves died down. When Jesus arrives, all of the stuff that threatens to knock us off course and mess us up, that stuff dies down. It goes away. The result of Jesus' arrival, church, was smooth sailing. And so what if there was something? Better put, what if there was someone who we could invite into our relationships, who we could build our relationships on, that would result in more smooth sailing, that would result in the best smooth sailing? See, here's the problem. I think sometimes we think, well, Rob, at the beginning when you were talking about energy, effort, work, yeah, I just need to do more of that. I need to be better there. If I just gave more energy and more effort and more work more consistently, things would be better. And I get the Jesus piece, but I don't work hard enough. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you need to work hard enough, but I want you to understand this. Jesus is the realest help you can get. You and I need Jesus. We've been saying this every week as we close. Look at this. The condition of the waters is not as important as inviting God onto the boat. When God gets on the boat, the waters calm down. See, he walks on water. And he can enable you and I to walk on water as well. But best of all, when he arrives, the waters calm, and things that were impossible even moments before are now possible. And so here's the thing, church. We got to get him onto the boat. I got to have him on my boat. You need him on your boat. And when he gets there, we should celebrate that salvation has come and all things are possible. Let's pray. As we pray today, I want to recognize that there's two big, broad categories of people in the room. For some of us here, you're the kind of person where, you know what? You have smooth waters in your key relationships, and you love that. But you want to keep that. You want to maintain that. You don't want to have smooth waters for a short period of time. You want to have smooth sailing for as long as you can. The other group of us here is the ones that really don't have smooth waters. We don't have smooth sailing in our key relationships. And for some of us, we just really want those. We've gotten a little tired. For others of us, it's more than just wanting those or preferring those or wishing for those. For some of us, maybe you're at a moment right now where for you, you're like, I need some smooth sailing. I need some calm waters. I am so worn out and tired. I don't know how much longer I can keep going. And for all of us here, you need to remember those two things. Work, right? Energy, effort, work. Energy, effort, work. And Jesus. And if you can only pick one right now, start with Jesus. Because he's the most powerful. And so, Lord, may your presence calm the water. But God, not just the water out there. A lot of times we think about that. It's that other person that's making the water rough. It's the circumstances. We blame the circumstances. That's what is making the water rough. And God, we need you to calm those waters of other people and difficult circumstances. But God, I would pray too that you would calm the waters in here. God, in our own minds, in our own hearts. The places in us that don't trust other people or that prepare to blow them up instead of giving them the benefit of the doubt. God, today I want to pray that you would grow our hearts for others and that you would grow our heart for you as well. God, when others act or behave in ways that don't deserve the benefit of the doubt, God, give us your increased love for them, even when they're not lovable. Father, in our own lives, I pray that you would give people your love for us, God, so that they would love us in the moments where we're not very lovely. And God, may we be people who always give the benefit of the doubt. May we always be people who choose, when at all possible, to sail smoothly. Lord, I thank you for this truth. May this reality be something we get to experience more often than not. And God, as we close this time today, I just thank you for the privilege of being able to sing a fun song filled with energy to celebrate and invite this reality into our lives, in our relationships. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.